You're standing at the meat counter, staring at sirloin, ribeye, filet, and dozens of price tags. Steaks look shiny and premium, but one wrong choice and you've wasted serious money on a tough, flavorless cut. Butchers know the truth about which steaks are overrated and which are worth every dollar. Today, we're breaking it all down. Starting off with number 5, the king of scams, filet mignon, the steak that charges like royalty but delivers like cardboard. Filet mignon sits in the butcher's case like a diamond in a velvet box, thin, shiny, and priced at $40 or more per pound. Steakhouses parade it around as the peak of fine dining. But butchers? They shake their heads and laugh. Because you're not paying for flavor, you're paying for tenderness and hype. But here's the real deal. Tenderness without flavor is like buying a luxury car with no engine. It looks great, it feels smooth, but it doesn't actually take you anywhere. That's exactly what filet mignon is. Soft, expensive, and flavorless. This cut comes from the tenderloin, a muscle that hardly does any work on the cow. That's why it's so tender. It's never been stressed. But because it has almost no fat, it has almost no taste. Fat equals flavor. Without it, you're left chewing on a very expensive sponge. One butcher once joked, "It's like paying top dollar for a pillow, soft, but why would you eat it? Would you pay extra for a steak that tastes like nothing?" Nutritionally, filet mignon doesn't earn its price tag either. Compare it to ribeye or sirloin, and you'll see it falls flat. Ribeye brings rich marbling, iron, and more vitamins. Filet is low in fat, low in nutrients, and high only in price. You're essentially buying steak-shaped water with a price tag that screams luxury. Steakhouses love selling filet because it's easy, uniform shape, quick to cook, and nearly impossible to ruin. That's why it's on every premium menu. But insiders know better. Chef David Burke flat out called it the most overrated food of all time. Other chefs call it boring, one-dimensional, and only impressive to people who don't actually know beef. And think about how restaurants serve it. Ever notice it's always smothered in sauces or wrapped in bacon? That's not elevated cooking. That's a desperate attempt to cover up the fact that the steak itself is bland. Without those extras, filet mignon wouldn't stand a chance against a properly marbled ribeye or a flavorful strip steak. Butchers think you're paying top dollar for a sponge, and they're not wrong. One butcher admitted, "We never buy it for ourselves. Customers think it's special, but it's not our first choice. Not even close." When the people selling it won't eat it, that should tell you everything. So why do people still buy it? Because the name sounds fancy. It looks small, neat, and elegant on a plate. Because we've been sold the idea that expensive automatically means better. Filet mignon is a marketing win, not a culinary one. Next time you see it on a menu, ask yourself, are you paying for taste or just for tenderness dressed in a tuxedo? Ever wasted money on filet mignon? Tell us your story in the comments. We want to hear the horror. And if you think filet is a ripoff, wait until you see the steakhouse darling that's all show and no substance. Up next, the Instagram-famous T-bone. Moving towards number 4, T-bone, which might look like 2 steaks in one, but butchers know it's one giant ripoff split down the middle. It's the steakhouse showpiece. Thick slab of meat with that signature bone in the middle, thrown on a plate like a trophy. Instagram eats it up because it looks like you're getting not one steak but 2. A filet on one side, a strip steak on the other. Sounds like a dream, right? Think you're getting a deal? Think again. Let's start with the filet side, that little triangle. It's barely 2 bites. A butcher once joked, calling that a filet is like calling a puddle a swimming pool. You're paying for a combo steak, but one half is a cruel joke. Then comes the strip side. Bigger, sure, but it's tough, chewy, and hard to cook. Restaurants love throwing T-bones on the grill because they photograph well. But the bone in the middle makes it nearly impossible to cook both sides evenly. One side ends up undercooked, the other overcooked. Customers smile for the camera, then gnaw through leathery beef while posting filtered photos. That little filet side? A cruel joke in disguise. And the fat? Don't expect that rich ribeye-style marbling. On a T-bone, the fat sits along the edges and rarely renders down. Instead of flavor, you're left with gummy strips of fat you have to cut off your plate. Butchers call it paying premium for chew toys. Price is where the scam really shines. A T-bone often costs as much or more than a ribeye or porterhouse. Yet you're not getting premium quality, just a flashy bone and uneven meat. You're spending big money for a steak that frustrates cooks and diners alike. A staff forum once had a line cook admit, "We hated cooking T-bones. No matter what, one side's raw and the other's dry. Customers complain every time." Another butcher confessed, "If you want both filet and strip, buy them separately. Don't waste money on this Frankenstein cut. 2 steaks in one? More like 2 problems on one plate." And let's be real. Steakhouses push T-bones not because they're delicious, but because they're easy profit. They look huge, they sound impressive, and they sell for 40 bucks or more. Customers think they're getting value, but insiders know it's smoke and mirrors. So ask yourself, would you pay premium prices for a steak that photographs better than it tastes? For meat that chews like a rubber band on one side and disappears in 2 bites on the other? What's the toughest steak you've ever struggled through? Drop your story in the comments, we've all been there. Think the T-bone was bad? Round steak makes it worse. It lures you in with a low price, then punishes you at the table with toughness that could break your jaw. Cheap on the shelf, brutal on your teeth. Number 3 is the round steak, where wallets win and jaws lose. At first glance, round steak looks like a bargain. It's sitting in the case for half the price of ribeye or strip, maybe even less. Shoppers think they've hacked the system. Big slab of beef, small price tag. Butchers, they just shake their heads. One called it shoe leather with a barcode. But the painful truth is, round steak is cut from the back leg of the cow, one of the hardest working muscles in the entire animal. That means fibers as tight as rope, almost no fat and zero marbling. The result? A steak so lean and dry it laughs at your teeth. People throw it on the grill hoping for juicy beef. What they actually get is hours of chewing that ends in regret. Ever chewed so long you lost your appetite? Picture it. You bite down, start chewing, and it doesn't break down. It just bounces between your teeth until it turns into a gray ball of gum-like meat. No matter how long you keep at it, your jaw gets sore before the steak gives in. A former line cook put it bluntly, round steak ruins more barbecues than burnt hot dogs. And don't expect flavor to save it. Because round is so lean, it has none of that buttery taste you get from fat. You're left with bland, dry beef that tastes like boiled cardboard. Even slow cooking doesn't fully rescue it. Sure, you can braise it for hours, drown it in gravy, and it might become edible. But at that point, you've spent half a day cooking a cut that should have stayed in the dog's bowl. Butchers don't call it shoe leather for nothing. Nutrition-wise, round looks healthy on paper. Lean, low-fat, high-protein. But there's a reason seniors especially are warned away. It's dangerous for those with dental problems or digestion issues. A piece of round steak can be almost impossible to chew safely, leading to choking risks. Even once swallowed, it's heavy and tough on the stomach. Butchers know it's a cut that takes more from your body than it gives. The low price doesn't actually save you money. People buy round because it's cheap, but then they can't finish it. Or worse, they toss half of it out. That's money wasted. Compare that to a slightly pricier but flavorful cut that you actually enjoy. And suddenly, round isn't a deal at all. One butcher's quote says it all. You're not buying dinner, you're buying dental work. Name a cut you'll never buy again. I bet round makes your list. Round steak leaves your teeth aching, but flank steak pushes it further. It's the so-called healthy option that feels like sawing through a tire at the table. Sliding in number 2, marketed as lean and healthy, flank steak is really a workout disguised as dinner. At first glance, flank looks like the perfect fitness cut. Low fat, high protein, and often labeled as the smarter choice for people trying to stay lean. Grocery stores push it as the healthy alternative to ribeye or strip, and plenty of home cooks grab it thinking they've scored a smart buy. Butchers, they smirk. They know this is a cut that breaks more jaws than it fills bellies. Butchers know better. Flank comes from the abdominal muscles of the cow, one of the most overworked areas. That means dense fibers, long muscle strands, and meat that feels more like a bundle of rubber bands than a steak. Without proper prep, it's like sawing into a car tire. Even with a sharp knife, cutting through those strands can feel like you're fighting back against the meat itself. Would you risk dinner on a cut that demands a tutorial? Yes, flank can be edible, but only if you know the secret formula. Hours in a marinade, grilled quickly at high heat, then sliced perfectly against the grain in thin strips. Miss even one of those steps? You're in trouble. Cook it too long, and it seizes up into a chewy mess. Slice it with the grain instead of across, and you'll be chewing until your jaw gives out. One butcher compared it to eating a stack of elastic bands dipped in beef juice. Most people at home ruin it. They don't marinate long enough, they don't slice it right, they cook it like a normal steak and end up serving something that could double as a shoe insert. Families sit down, take one bite, and suddenly the dog looks pretty interested in joining dinner. Chewing shouldn't feel like arm day at the gym. Nutritionally, it sounds good on paper, low fat, lots of protein. But food isn't just about macros, it's about flavor and enjoyment. Flank's leanness means there's almost no marbling to melt and tenderize. So instead of buttery richness, you get bland beef fibers that punish you for every bite. Older adults, in particular, struggle with it. Dentists and doctors have even warned against serving flank to seniors because it can be dangerous to chew and digest. What's the point of saving a few calories if you're also risking a choking hazard? And let's talk money. Flank isn't cheap anymore. In many supermarkets, it's priced at or even above cuts that taste better and cook easier. So not only is it work to prepare, it's a financial trick too. You're paying more for the privilege of getting less. Ever ruined a flank steak at home? Be honest, was it chewy, dry, or both? Drop your story below. But if flank is the fake healthy pick, then Wagyu takes the crown as the so-called luxury cut that butchers laugh at. And trust me, this next one is pure beef-flavored butter, and not in a good way. Coming in at number 1, the so-called luxury cut. Wagyu and Kobe. Luxury? More like cholesterol with a bow on it. These are beef-flavored butter, and butchers know it. This is the steak that Instagram influencers drool over. Glowing pink meat laced with thick white fat, marketed as the ultimate luxury. Menus brag about its marbling, as if that alone makes it worth hundreds of dollars per pound. Butchers roll their eyes because they know the truth. You're not eating steak, you're eating fat with a little beef mixed in. But the fat truth is, a single pound of authentic Japanese Kobe can push past $300. Even American Wagyu hybrids often top $100 per pound. People pay those prices thinking they're buying exclusivity, when really, they're buying grease that coats their tongue like an oil slick. It may melt in your mouth, but so does butter. And you don't see anyone spending hundreds on a butter sandwich. And let's talk about that melt. Butchers joke that Wagyu isn't beef, it's beef-flavored butter. Bite into it, and instead of rich steak flavor, you get a mouthful of oil that lingers on your tongue, sticks to the roof of your mouth, and makes your stomach feel like it just swallowed a fryer basket. Would you pay a fortune for beef-flavored butter? Nutritionally, it's a disaster. A standard ribeye already has plenty of fat, but Wagyu takes it to another level. Studies estimate that Wagyu can carry nearly double the saturated fat of regular cuts. That's not indulgence. That's a cholesterol bomb waiting to go off. For seniors or anyone with heart concerns, this isn't just unhealthy, it's dangerous. But that doesn't stop restaurants from hyping it as the healthier fat or claiming it's worth the splurge. Marketing keeps the illusion alive. The word Kobe, especially, is thrown around on menus everywhere, even when it isn't real Japanese Kobe. The truth is, most of what you see labeled Kobe outside Japan isn't authentic at all. It's imitation with a luxury price tag. But customers buy into the mystique, thinking they're tasting some rare delicacy when really they're being scammed with rebranded Wagyu or hybrid cattle. That marbling isn't magic, it's a red flag. Ask the butchers who actually cut this stuff. Many admit they'd never take it home for dinner. Not because they can't afford it, but because it's more fat than food. One butcher compared it to gnawing through beef candles. Another joked it's like eating steak lip gloss. Entertaining? Sure. Worth the health risk and cost? Not a chance. When you grill Wagyu at home, the fat drips onto the coals, creating flare-ups and smoke that turn your backyard into a grease fire. The same thing happens in restaurants. Chefs fight to control the flames while your $100 cut sizzles away into puddles of fat. So yes, it looks pretty on a plate. Yes, it's a status symbol. But butcher to butcher, the verdict is simple: overpriced, overrated, and unhealthy. What's the priciest steak you've ever regretted? Drop it in the comments. We want to know who else fell for the hype. Before we move on, let me ask you this. Why keep gambling with your health and wallet when you could know exactly what to buy? Subscribe right now so you never waste money on the wrong steak again. Now let's talk about the steaks butchers actually eat. Now for a hidden gem. Flat iron, the butcher's quiet favorite. This is the steak most people skip right past in the meat case, but the butchers smile when they see it. Why? Because they know it's the second most tender cut on the entire cow, right behind filet. But it doesn't come with the outrageous price tag. Instead of $40 a pound, you can grab flat iron for under half that and actually get flavor with your tenderness. Here's the cut that delivers every time. Flat iron comes from the shoulder, a spot you wouldn't expect to yield something this good. But modern butchering methods unlocked it by removing a tough connective seam. What's left is a long, even cut with rich marbling, just enough fat to stay juicy, and none of the chewiness that ruins round or flank. Butchers love it because it's reliable. It cooks evenly, doesn't shrink into a puddle of grease, and slices like butter without tasting like butterfat overload. The flavor? Bold and beefy. Unlike filet, which tastes like expensive water, flat iron has character. Pan-seared, grilled, or broiled, it develops a deep crust while staying tender inside. One butcher said, "If I had to serve one cut blindfolded to impress someone, it'd be flat iron." That's not hype, it's from the people who cut steaks for a living. Why isn't this on your grill yet? Nutritionally, flat iron also pulls ahead. It carries about 8 grams of fat per 3-ounce serving, moderate compared to Wagyu bombs, but still has high protein and iron content. That balance makes it both flavorful and practical. For families on a budget, it's a win-win. A steakhouse quality cut without the steakhouse bill. Imagine a thick slab of flat iron sizzling on the grill, juices running but not flooding, the meat turning mahogany brown with those perfect charred stripes. When you slice into it, it's pink, tender, and ready to chew, not the jaw-breaking work out of a flank or round. Butchers don't just recommend it, they often take it home for themselves. That's the real endorsement. Ever notice how the cuts butchers eat never make the billboard? So why isn't Flatiron more famous? Because restaurants don't want you to know. Steakhouses can't charge $80 for it like they do filet or ribeye. It's a butcher's bargain, and if more customers demanded it, the entire markup game would collapse. That's why you almost never see it featured on the menu. So if you're looking for a cut that balances tenderness, flavor, and price, Flatiron is the sweet spot. It's the steakhouse industry's best-kept secret hiding in plain sight. Ever tried Flatiron? Share your experience in the comments. We want to know if it lived up to the hype. And if you thought Flatiron was underrated, just wait until you hear about hanger steak, the rare cut butchers practically fight over. Last but not least, the butcher's secret, hanger steak. This is the cut you almost never see in a supermarket, and there's a reason for that. Each cow only produces one hanger steak, not one per side, not one per quarter, just one total. That rarity is exactly why butchers used to keep it for themselves, earning it the nickname butcher's steak. They knew what shoppers didn't. Hanger is tender, flavorful, and worth every bite. The cut you never see on display, hanger steak, sits just beneath the rib, near the diaphragm. It's technically part of the plate section, but unlike flank or skirt, it's soft, marbled, and packed with beefy richness. Think of it as the flavor king of the cow. While filet tries to impress with texture, hanger strikes a perfect balance, tender enough to slice without effort, but bold enough to deliver that unmistakable steakhouse punch. Chefs love it because it soaks up marinades and sears beautifully. Butchers love it because it's consistent. Cook it medium rare, and you'll get a juicy, almost buttery chew without the grease overload of Wagyu. Pan, grill, cast iron, it doesn't matter. Hanger performs every time. This is the steak they hide for themselves. Because only one hanger exists per animal, it rarely makes it to chain supermarkets. Independent butchers sometimes stock it, but even then, regulars will ask first before it goes public. That scarcity makes hanger feel like an insider's prize, and it explains why for decades it never left the back counter. We kept it because we knew customers wouldn't understand what they were missing, one butcher admitted. Hanger is often cheaper than ribeye or strip when you can find it. That means the best flavor-to-cost ratio in the entire beef case. For shoppers lucky enough to grab one, it feels like winning the lottery. Ever wondered what steak the pros take home? This is it. Nutritionally, hanger also holds its ground. High in protein and iron, moderate fat for flavor, and less cholesterol than Wagyu. That makes it both satisfying and practical. Seniors who struggle with flank or round find hanger far easier to chew, and families get steakhouse quality meat without blowing the budget. The downside? Mislabeling. Some markets pass off skirt or flank as hanger, but once you've had the real thing, you'll never confuse it. It has a loose grain, rich marbling, and a deep red color that sets it apart. Picture slicing into a perfectly cooked hanger steak, a ruby pink center, juices glistening, each bite melting just enough without turning greasy. That's why chefs across France call it onglet and guard it for their menus, while US butchers still smile when a knowledgeable customer asks for one. Would you hunt for hanger steak now that you know the truth? Drop your answer in the comments. And that brings us full circle. We've torn apart the overpriced cuts and lifted the lid on the ones worth every dollar. Now let's close it out with the truth you need before your next trip to the butcher counter. Here's the bottom line. The steakhouse industry is tricking you, overpriced, unhealthy, and dangerous cuts passed off as premium. Want to know which steaks are actually safe, flavorful, and worth your money? Subscribe now and never get scammed at the butcher counter again.